Podcast, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting your ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to row-wide facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The Bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome back to the Bullvine Podcast, where we cut through dairy industry noise to get you the insights that actually matter for your operation.
And today, we're diving deep into a feature piece that's been generating some serious buzz. This one's got layers and some genuine surprises, I think, that are going to make farmers rethink how they've been approaching pricing, market access, really survival.
We're talking about this huge difference, aren't we? The difference between like $2 commodity milk.
Yeah, the stuff everyone's used to.
And then maybe $20 premium milk. It sounds almost unbelievable.
It does. And we want to dig into what the simple strategic choice is, apparently, that creates that massive gap.
Okay, let's unpack this right away, because the fundamental conflict, well, it's staring every dairyman in the face, isn't it?
It really is.
On one hand, you see this huge growth, almost exponential in specialty, direct-to-consumer markets.
Right, the niche stuff is booming.
Data Horizon Research, for instance, they report raw milk sales alone grew, an incredible 21% just in 2024.
21%, wow.
And they're aiming for like $1.37 billion globally by 2033. This isn't just a fad, it feels like real structural change.
But then you look on the other side of the fence, right? The conventional guys, the ones scaling up, playing the volume game.
They're struggling.
They're fighting tooth and nail just to break even. The stakes here are, they're just brutal. We're talking about shifting your priorities being the difference between, making it or constantly struggling.
And the sources, they gave us this really chilling example right out of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one.
You take a typical 50-cow operation there. They gross around $330,000 annually. Sounds pretty solid, right?
On paper, yeah. 330 grand sounds okay.
But the net reality, after feed, labor, energy, debt service, all of it, they are clearing just $25,000 annually.
$25,000. Just think about that for a second.
Yeah.
That single number has to support a family, cover health insurance, allow for any kind of future investment, maybe fix the tractor when it breaks. That's a net margin of less than 8%. Less than 8%. That farmer is probably working 80 hours a week carrying massive debt. Just to net less than the average manufacturing wage in the U.S.
It's terrifying.
What happens when interest rates tick up just a bit more? Or a drought hits their feed costs?
Exactly. And what we really want to explore today is how the sources suggest this. This 1,000% premium is actually achievable.
Yeah, the 1,000% number catches your eye.
Right, and not through some massive capital outlay, apparently, but simply by shifting priorities, moving from just pure production volume
to focusing on verified attributes and really intense customer-focused transparency. That huge financial gap, that $2 versus $20, it establishes why this conversation isn't just academic, it's about strategic necessity.
And here's the controversial bit, right? The part that probably makes every farmer listening kind of roll their eyes. Premium pricing. It sounds expensive. It sounds like it demands a massive upfront investment, like building a $500,000 creamery or something.
Yeah, that's the immediate thought. I can't afford that.
But the provocative idea we're digging into is that the actual financial investment needed to capture these huge premiums, specifically things like consistent monthly testing protocols and the labor time, for customer relationship management, it's shockingly small compared to the potential financial return.
So the real barrier isn't the cash.
The sources suggest it isn't capital, it's the mindset.
Ah, okay. That's interesting.
The real challenge, and this is what we have to really wrestle with for our listeners, is transforming your mindset. Moving from being just a dairyman
focused on efficiency, feed costs, the bulk tank volume, The traditional stuff.
Exactly, to becoming more of a marketer, someone focused on consumer relationships, transparency, building brand equity. That takes a total different approach to farming, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a whole different skill set.
Okay, let's dive into the hard numbers first.
Yeah.
The ones that define this core issue, the desperation we're seeing across the dairy belt. Because this commodity pressure, it isn't just a cycle anymore, is it?
No, it feels like something more permanent, an existential threat for a huge number of operations.
And the USDA data confirms it. This devastating structural trend. Approximately 2,800 dairy operations lost annually in recent years.
Let's just pause on that number.
Yeah.
2,800 farms gone.
Yeah.
Every year.
Yeah.
That breaks down to about 8 farms closing their doors every single day.
8 a day.
Every sunrise, another 8 families decide the fight just isn't worth it anymore. That's a horrifying rate of attrition. It screams that farmers need to reassess their strategies, like yesterday.
And then you look at the conventional milk checks. The volatility alone, it makes planning just a nightmare.
Oh, absolutely.
The source material notes producers seeing prices bounce wildly between, what, $1.13 and $2.19 per gallon?
Wait. We need to dig into that volatility for a second, because that's not just like regional variation we're talking about.
No.
That's blend price pressure, isn't it? The co-op mixing your high-quality fluid milk, your Class I, with milk that's destined for cheese or powder,
Yeah.
Class 3 or 4, and paying you a lower average based on that mix.
Exactly.
So when the Class 4 market tanks because of something happening globally with supply, something completely outside your control,
Yeah.
your blend price just gets demolished.
Yeah.
How do you plan? How do you manage that massive debt load you're carrying when your gross revenue can literally be cut in half on a moment's notice because of some macroeconomic factor overseas? You can't.
You really can't. And that brings us back to that Lancaster County dairyman anecdote. It just perfectly illustrates the pain of running on such thin margins.
Yeah, that $330,000 gross for a 50-cow operation.
Yeah.
That takes really good management, good production to hit that.
It does. But after all the expenses are paid, they only cleared $25,000. That margin is razor thin, less than 8%, like you said.
So if your main tractor breaks down, catastrophic failure if you have one bad feed year because of weather,
Wipes out the profit.
or if your herd health just takes a temporary dip, that $25,000 vanishes instantly. That operation is basically insolvent if they face any major unforeseen event. And I know producers, I know guys in Wisconsin, Michigan, even New York, living that exact scenario, they feel stuck.
Totally stuck.
They can't just scale up easily because they don't have the, $20 million in capital needed for true industrial scale.
Right.
But they also haven't built the customer base or the infrastructure for these premium sales we're talking about. They're caught.
And that gets us right to the most vulnerable group, doesn't it? The vanishing middle. The pressure is highest right now on these mid-sized operations. Typically, the ones running maybe 200 to 1,000 cows. They are caught in a serious structural squeeze.
Okay, tell me more about that squeeze. Why are they more vulnerable maybe than the 50-cow guy we just talked about?
Well, think about it. The 50-cow operation, they can pivot more quickly, right? They can maybe establish a small customer list, start direct marketing with relatively low overhead.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
More agile.
But the 200 to 1,000 cow operation, they're often too large to easily access those direct-to-consumer premiums that require that really high engagement. They just have too much volume to sell farm to farm or at a small market stand.
Right, you can't sell 500 cows worth of milk out of the back of a pickup truck.
Exactly. But at the same time, they are definitely too small to achieve those massive industrial-scale efficiencies.
The kind the really big guys have.
Yeah, think massive feed contracts, huge robotic systems, maybe complex tax write-offs, all the things that drive production costs down to the absolute minimum you need to survive that, $1.13 price floor.
So they're getting squeezed from both ends.
Precisely. They're competing against the efficiency giants on one side and the nimble marketing entrepreneurs on the other, and often losing the margin battle to both.
Their high volume forces them into the co-op system, which traps them in that commodity volatility.
Yep.
But their herd size isn't big enough to give them access to the absolute lowest cost of production, like the mega dairies.
It truly is the riskiest place to be in the dairy industry right now.
Yeah, it sounds like the worst of both worlds. If you're a 5,000 cow farm out in Idaho, you survive through sheer capital and scale. If you're a 50 cow farm, maybe you survive through intense customer loyalty and direct sales. But if you're 400 cows, you're stuck playing a losing game of catch-up on both sides. It's tough.
So that whole context, that pressure, It really sets the stage for the disruptors, doesn't it? We have to challenge this conventional wisdom that raw milk is just this tiny niche market where maybe you can charge, I don't know, $10 or $12 a gallon if you're lucky.
Yeah, that's the usual thinking. A nice little side hustle, maybe.
But then you look at Delaware, specifically Delaware.
Delaware.
Yeah.
Okay, the source mentioned they only have, 13 raw milk operations in the whole state?
Yeah.
How are 13 small operations setting some kind of national price benchmark? I'm a little skeptical there.
I hear you. But here's the thing. Delaware's 13 operations, they are commanding $16 to $20 per gallon.
16 to 20.
Yeah. That is far exceeding the typical raw milk premium of maybe $10 to $12 per gallon that you see in a lot of other states. They've basically doubled the premium.
Okay, wait, did you catch that detail about the H5N1 screening?
Yes, that's crucial.
The source says Delaware pioneered that screening as part of their comprehensive protocols, like way before it became this big national headline and mandatory testing issue.
Exactly.
That's not just compliance, that's brand management on steroids, taking a potential negative and getting way out ahead of it.
That is the absolute key differentiator here. And it gets right to our culture about how testing turns into a market asset. They didn't just, comply with state regulations, tick the boxes.
Wow.
They embraced rigorous, transparent, and proactive testing protocols as market differentiation. They took regulatory necessity, even potential regulatory fear around something like H5N1.
And flipped it.
And turned it into a unique selling proposition. Unparalleled safety and transparency. That extra $4 to $8 premium they're getting, the sources directly attribute it to their transparent testing building exceptional consumer trust.
As a farmer, testing usually just feels like overhead.
Yeah.
It's a recurring cost, right? A necessary evil you have to pay for.
Right.
But this data, it suggests that viewing testing not just as an obligation, but as verifiable proof of quality, as a marketing asset, that fundamentally changes the economic outcome.
Yeah.
The farmer isn't just selling milk anymore. They're selling safety, peace of mind, backed up by a lab report.
Exactly. And the data backs up why consumers are willing to pay for that extra assurance. Consider the British Columbia Fresh Milk Project. It ran from 2015 to 2019.
Okay.
They analyzed 265 samples, conducted over 1,000 pathogen tests, 1,060, specifically on milk produced explicitly for direct human consumption.
And the result?
0 pathogens found. None.
0 across all those tests.
0. And that data point is so crucial because it really pushes back against the perception, the sort of lingering fear that raw milk is inherently dirty or unsafe.
Now, you have to contrast that with the other side of the story, right? Those peer-reviewed studies showing pathogen detection in up to, 33% of pre-pasteurized bulk tank samples.
Right, milk that's heading for the processor anyway.
The difference is staggering. And it really speaks to fundamentally different production priorities, different management rigor. When you know your product is going directly to a consumer who is going to call you personally if there's ever a problem.
And to truly grasp the level of commitment here, we need to look at the standards these premium producers are actually meeting. Take RAWMI certified operations. That's the Raw Milk Institute.
Okay, RAWMI, I've heard of them. They set pretty high bars, don't they?
Very high. But these top performers, they're achieving coliform counts, averaging just 1 to 3 colony-forming units per milliliter, 1 to 3 CFU/ml.
Okay, hold on. Let's get technical for the listeners just for a sec. Standard grade A, raw milk regs. They often tolerate specific plate counts, SPCs, of 100,000 or even higher, right?
Correct.
And coliform counts maybe up to 750 or 1,000 CFU/ml, depending on the state. RAWMI's suggested standard is already way stricter, requiring coliforms under 50, I think.
Under 50 is their target, yes.
Okay, under 50.
And these high performers in Delaware and other places, they're hitting counts of 1 to 3.
1 to 3.
Yeah. That means their milk is effectively 75 times cleaner than even the already stringent RAWMI requirement demands.
Wow.
It's a commitment to safety that goes so far beyond basic compliance that consumers recognize it as absolute dedication. And they're willing to pay a significant premium for that dedication.
So the equation becomes pretty simple then.
It seems so. Enhanced testing, plus transparency about the results, adds a specific $4 to $8 per gallon to the standard raw milk premiums. And suddenly, you're talking about $20 milk. It's not magic, it's documented proof. Okay, let's get down to the brass tacks then. Because this is where the skeptical farmer, the one listening right now, needs to see the proof in the pudding.
Yeah.
What does this transparency, this commitment to testing, what does it actually cost?
We need to quantify the investment first, put some real numbers on it. The sources tell us that monthly comprehensive pathogen testing, depending on the exact panel and the lab's price schedule, it typically costs only about $300 to $500.
$300 to $500 a month. Okay, that's a fixed cost. It seems entirely manageable in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, compared to, say, a feed bill.
But let's go back to our Lancaster County dairyman example, the one clearing only $25,000 net.
Okay.
Where is he finding an extra $500 every single month for testing? Even if the ROI, the return on investment, is potentially massive down the road, that initial cash flow hit still hurts, doesn't it?
That's the practical hurdle, absolutely. I mean, the investment, it isn't initially paid for by your current milk checks, which are already stretched thin.
Right.
It has to be paid for by maybe reducing personal expenses or finding a small short-term loan or line of credit specifically for this. But the economics become incredibly compelling when you look at that ROI.
Explain that.
Well, think about it. When that $500 monthly investment drives your premium pricing from, say, $12 per gallon, which is already a decent premium compared to commodity.
Yeah, $12 is good.
Up to $20 per gallon, like we're seeing in Delaware. The financial return on that $500 is just massive.
It becomes the ultimate leverage point then. If a small operation is selling, let's say, 1,000 gallons a month.
Okay, 1,000 gallons.
That $8 jump in margin from $12 to $20, it translates to an extra $8,000 in revenue every single month.
$8,000 more, just from differentiating on transparency and testing.
That is the simple testing strategy creating those 1,000% premiums we talked about at the start. It's a relatively tiny investment unlocking potentially exponential returns.
The real pivot point then is realizing that the test result itself, it's not just a cost center on your P&L statement. It's actually marketing collateral.
Yes, exactly. Look at that Maryland producer example discussed in the source material.
The one using social media.
Yeah, she's not just filing those lab reports away in her drawer. She's actively turning those monthly lab reports into social media content. She posts them transparently on her farm's Facebook page, maybe puts a copy up at the farm stand.
Like, hey, everyone, another clean month. Check out our results.
Exactly. Coliform count, 1 CFUL. That's our guarantee to you. That kind of direct communication.
And that level of engagement, that openness, it completely changes the dynamic with the customer, doesn't it?
Totally. Customers are literally driving past a competitor's farm down the road that sells milk for $12 just to buy from her at $20. Why?
Because she has verified, published safety data that speaks directly to their concerns. They trust her more.
So the cost isn't just the $500 for the lab fee. It's also the time and the commitment required to communicate those results effectively. That's part of the investment too.
Right. And this also highlights the need for capital discipline in this model. The campaign for real milk. They have these models suggesting that an integrated 20-cow operation can generate around $257,500 in gross revenue.
Okay, $250,000 from 20 cows. That's impressive.
But here's the crucial caveat, the fine print. That only happens after you've already established your market presence, not in anticipation of it.
So you don't go take out a big loan for the fancy processing facility first?
No, you validate the market and build that customer trust first. Using the data, using that $500 monthly testing, using your time on social media.
The cash flow for the initial investment then? It's mostly marketing time, social media effort, maybe some local ads, and that $500 a month in testing.
Which is a fundamentally different and much lower barrier to entry than trying to raise, say, $50,000 or $100,000 for processing equipment up front.
That distinction, that might be the absolute key to unlocking this whole premium strategy for a lot of farms. Okay, so our sources didn't just talk theory. They did some really extensive work outlining 7 clear patterns they observed among successful premium operations. And these, honestly, feel like required reading for anyone even thinking about making this kind of shift.
Yeah, the patterns were really insightful. Let's dig into them.
Let's dive deep into maybe 3 of the most crucial ones, starting with geography, because, you often emphasize volume and efficiency.
Yield is charged. That's the traditional mindset.
Right. But here, the data suggests location, location, location might actually be destiny for direct marketers.
Okay, I'm always told volume and feed efficiency matter most. Convince me. Why does the zip code of my potential customers matter more than my production sheet?
Well, the data analysis showed that success for a direct market operation is markedly better, like significantly better, if you are located within about 30 minutes drive of communities with median household incomes exceeding $75,000.
$75K plus, within half an hour.
Okay. It turns out that proximity to disposable income, it matters more than your production volume per cow. You could be milking, say, 25,000 pounds per cow, top-of-the-line efficiency.
Yeah.
But if your nearest $75,000 plus community is 90 minutes away, Your actual market access is severely constrained, just by consumer convenience, driving time, fuel costs.
Huh. That's a tough pill to swallow for producers located in really deep rural America. But I guess it makes perfect sense when you think about it.
How so?
Well, these consumers,
Mm-hmm.
the ones who are actually willing and able to pay $20 a gallon for milk,
Yeah.
they're just looking for milk, are they? They're looking for a verified local experience, something special.
Right.
And they want that experience to fit conveniently into their already busy schedules. They have the disposable income. They have the desire for these verified local products.
Yeah.
But they absolutely demand convenience. That 30-minute drive is probably their limit.
Makes sense. Okay, pattern number 2, integration over diversification.
Yeah, the stacking enterprises idea.
Exactly. You see these operations where each part of the farm supports the others, creating this kind of virtuous cycle of revenue streams. Take that Delaware-Maryland border couple mentioned in the sources.
Okay, what are they doing?
Their raw milk sales, the high-value product, draws the initial customers to the farm. But the whey byproduct, maybe from making some cheese or yogurt on the side.
Yeah, always got whey left over.
That whey feeds approximately 30 pigs, which generates an additional $12,000 annually in pork sales.
Okay, nice. Turn a waste stream into profit.
And then the cycle continues. The pig manure enriches their, say, 2-acre market garden,
Free fertilizer?
generating another $8,000 or so in vegetable sales. They aren't just selling milk anymore, they're selling this whole regenerative food system experience.
And that's smart risk management too, isn't it? If the milk market dips slightly one month or demand fluctuates,
Yeah.
they still have the pork and the vegetables providing a more stable margin. It's a true farm ecosystem approach.
Yeah.
But it all relies on that high-value, transparently tested milk drawing the customer to the farm gate in the first place.
Exactly. Okay, third pattern, marketing sophistication. This one's fascinating.
Go on.
The sources highlight an operation achieving maybe modest production per cow, say only 18,000 pounds per cow annually.
Okay, that's decent, but not setting any records.
No, especially compared to their neighbors who might be pushing 25,000 pounds per cow, yet this lower producing farm's net income actually exceeds their high volume neighbors.
How? Just on price premium alone.
Partly price, but significantly because their customer relationship management, their CRM, it's retail level sophisticated.
What does that mean in practice?
It means they maintain detailed customer preferences, they remember dietary restrictions, they celebrate customer milestones, like sending a personalized email on a customer's birthday with a little discount code.
So they're not just selling a commodity.
Not at all. They are selling essentially an exclusive membership to their farm's food community.
They're selling an experience, not just a jug of milk. That is a completely different business model, and it requires a huge shift in where the farm's labor focus goes, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that brings us to the required commitment levels outlined. The sources are clear. Regulatory compliance isn't just a hurdle, it becomes your brand differentiation.
Yeah, turning the testing into that, we exceed every standard, unique selling proposition like we discussed earlier. That was one of the other patterns, right? Regulatory compliance is brand.
Exactly. Another key pattern was retail-level engagement. And this is where the time commitment really hits home. We are talking 3 to 5 social media posts every single week, plus monthly email newsletters, plus maintaining detailed customer databases.
You're basically running a small media company out of your barn office.
Pretty much.
And see, I'm not buying that everyone can just do that easily, that level of labor commitment. That's exactly why the skeptics balk at this model.
You think so?
Yeah. That's easily a full-time job for someone on the farm. Probably whoever isn't primarily focused on milking cows or field work. If that kind of skilled labor time is part of the low investment model, well, you need to factor in that labor cost at a pretty high rate. It feels like the biggest hidden cost in this whole transition.
That's a really fair point. And it leads directly into another critical pattern the sources identified: family alignment.
Getting everyone on the same page. Crucial.
The long-term viability of these premium models is critically dependent on all family members involved sharing the same vision and, importantly, agreeing on fair compensation structures.
Oh, yeah. If the older generation, say, still sees the dairy purely as a production unit, volume, efficiency, that's it.
Right.
And the younger generation is doing all this complex marketing work, the social media, the customer emails, the farmers markets, but isn't properly bought into the overall vision or isn't compensated fairly for that retail level commitment.
Recipe for disaster.
That operation is absolutely set up for an internal crisis.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Doesn't matter how clean their milk is or how high their premium.
Absolutely. If one person is mentally the dairyman and the other is the marketer, and they fundamentally don't agree on the financial split or the risk tolerance or the time allocation, that operation is set up to fail. It's a fundamental business structure decision that has to happen way before you buy a single piece of bottling equipment. So looking ahead then, the regulatory environment, it definitely seems to be evolving, doesn't it? And maybe in favor of these verified attributes, partly because these successful operations are proving it can be done safely.
Yeah, the landscape is shifting. You mentioned 16 states plus D.C. now permit retail sale of raw milk, and the trend seems to be accelerating.
We see specific examples of that acceleration happening right now. West Virginia, for instance, just passed HB 4911. They're going from basically total prohibition of raw milk sales to full retail authorization in 2025. That's a huge jump.
Wow, yeah. And Arkansas expanded access through farmers markets with their bill. North Dakota passed legislation allowing raw milk products, not just fluid milk. The doors are opening, state by state.
And what's really fascinating about this regulatory shift is that it feels like it's slowly catching up to the operational reality on the ground. Remember that 2018 study in the journal Epidemiology and Infection?
Vaguely. Remind me.
It noted that the actual outbreak rates per unit of consumption for raw milk declined approximately 74% since 2005. 74% decline.
Okay, that's a massive improvement in safety.
It is. The safety metrics are dramatically improving, largely due to this farmer-led commitment to rigorous testing and better protocols. And regulation is finally, slowly starting to take notice of that reality.
Okay, so raw milk is one path. It's demanding, high engagement, high reward potentially. But what about producers who want a premium, but maybe they can't commit or just plain don't want to commit to that intense direct consumer sales model?
Right. There have to be other options based on verified attributes. Organic, of course, is the most established path. It's been around for a while.
And organic consistently brings, what, $6 to $9 per gallon at retail compared to $2 to $3 for conventional?
Yeah, roughly. The established market is huge. The supply chains are there. But here's the big problem, the barrier. That significant 3-year transition challenge often stops producers cold.
Right. You have to farm using organic practices, which usually means higher input costs.
Feed, yeah.
But you only get paid conventional commodity prices for 3 solid years.
Exactly.
That is a major, major financial hurdle. If you're that farmer only netting $25,000 now, how on earth do you sustain negative cash flow for 3 straight years during that transition?
It pretty much requires significant outside capital or deep personal savings or off-farm income. It's tough.
Okay, what else? A2 milk seems to be gaining steady momentum. That feels like a strong intermediate path.
I agree. Genetic testing costs only about $30 per cow, a relatively tiny investment compared to infrastructure.
Yeah, $30 a head is nothing.
And it supports pretty significant price premiums, often 50 to 100% higher. And crucially, those premiums are often achievable even within existing co-op systems through segregated milk programs.
Right. I remember reading about an Ohio dairyman who described A2 as his bridge to premium markets. And that makes perfect sense.
How so?
Because the transition is primarily genetic, not operational. You test your herd. You breed strategically for A2 genetics using semen selection. And in a few years, you have a segregated A2 herd that fetches higher prices without radically changing your entire feed program or your marketing structure overnight. It feels like a much lower risk entry point into the premium space.
Good point. Then there's grass-fed, another option, though it can be pretty regionally challenging.
Yeah, location matters a lot for grass-fed.
That New York Finger Lakes operation mentioned, they're achieving $11 per gallon for milk that's certified organic and 100% grass-fed. $11.
Nice premium.
But if you're trying to do that down in Texas or Arizona, the heat, the limited rainfall, it makes achieving high grass-fed standards incredibly difficult and expensive. You'd need massive irrigation or have to import expensive forage. You really have to know your regional limitations and your cost of production.
And let's not forget the sort of middle ground of processing itself, micro-pasteurization.
Right, like low temp, high time, LTHT.
Yeah, maybe a $30,000 to $50,000 equipment cost. It offers a middle path for farmers who want to capture a processing premium without taking on the specific liabilities or regulatory hurdles of raw milk.
You process and bottle on site, offer a minimally processed, maybe non-homogenized product that often commands $5 to $8 per gallon retail.
And importantly, without the extreme labor demands of constant customer relationship management that seem necessary for the very top-tier raw milk prices. It's another valid strategy.
Okay, we spent a lot of time talking about these different premium markets, but we absolutely must acknowledge the other path, the industrial scale alternative.
Right. Because for operations that are already large, say 2,000 cows or more,
Yeah.
extreme efficiency is still a perfectly viable path, maybe even the preferred path for some.
It's highly capitalized. Often.
Hugely capitalized.
Yeah.
But that Idaho example from the source material is stark. You have a 5,000 cow operation producing milk at a cost of $14 per hundredweight.
Incredibly low.
While their 500 cow neighbors need $18 per hundredweight just to break even. That scale difference is massive.
And achieving that $14 cost requires capital probably exceeding $20 million. But for those who have access to that kind of capital, consolidation and scale basically eliminate that vanishing middle problem entirely.
Yeah, they succeed through pure efficiency and massive volume, not through niche marketing and transparency. It's a different world, but still a viable one.
So this brings us right back to the core strategic question, doesn't it? And this really feels like the crux of this entire deep dive for anyone listening. Will you transform from being primarily a dairy farmer who sells milk into becoming a food business that just happens to operate a dairy as part of it?
That really is the fundamental, almost philosophical difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the difference between that Lancaster County producer netting $25,000 and the Delaware producer potentially clearing 10 times that amount on fewer cows.
It's a conscious choice between maximizing production efficiency, the traditional dairyman focus,
Or maximizing margin per unit, which requires becoming a marketer.
And we have to acknowledge the strong counterpoint here. I remember my neighbor, who manages about 180 Holsteins, telling the source writer something like, look, I understand the opportunity, but I'm a dairyman, not a marketer.
And that's a perfectly valid choice. We have to say that.
Absolutely. If your passion, your skill set lies in maximizing production efficiency, managing complex genetics, optimizing feed rations down to the last decimal point, then being forced to pivot into direct retail, managing social media, dealing with customer complaints, it might feel like a massive, unwelcome distraction.
Yeah, it could lead straight to burnout and just an unhappy path, even if the money looks good on paper. You have to want to do it.
But the decision window seems critical right now. The market signals are pretty clear, aren't they? Consumers do increasingly want verified attributes. They want transparency. They want local.
The demand seems real, and the opportunity window appears particularly favorable probably through about 2027, based on current trends.
Why 2027?
Well, right now, entrants can still benefit from established educational resources, like the raw meat training we mentioned, while potentially still maintaining some first-mover advantages in their specific local markets.
Okay. The longer you wait.
The more saturated those local premium markets might become. Getting in early matters.
And the most critical thing, maybe the most urgent takeaway, is about that disappearing middle ground.
Yeah, that 200 to 1,000 cow range.
Yeah.
The operations that historically defined American dairying.
They are in the most vulnerable position right now, just standing still, continuing in business as usual, while hoping for a sustained commodity price rebound. Statistically, that looks like the riskiest decision you can possibly make.
The market forces seem likely to push you one way or the other eventually. Either you'll need to scale down and pivot to niche, or scale up massively, or find one of these premium avenues. Staying in the middle is getting harder and harder.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's saying you must go organic or you must do raw milk. But what if, for some operations, industrial scale through further consolidation is actually the better strategic choice? Especially if they're already efficient producers and somehow have access to that capital.
It's possible.
The absolute key is making an active choice based on your capital access, your location relative to those higher income consumers, and maybe most importantly, your family's commitment and skill set. Don't just stay stuck in that shrinking middle ground by default and watch your margins bleed away year after year. Choose a path. #tag actionable insights segment.
All right. So the farmer listening just finished morning milking. Maybe they're driving to the feed store right now, mulling all this over. They're convinced they need to choose a direction, make an active choice, like you said. What are the 3 concrete things they absolutely need to know from this discussion? What's their immediate, medium, and long-term action plan look like?
Okay, let's break it down. Starting with immediate action, like what you should do this week. And this first one is all about critical capital discipline. Don't spend money yet.
Okay, step 1.
Step 1, immediate action this week. Market validation. Do not invest in infrastructure yet. Don't change your feed program. Don't even order the A2 genetic tests yet. First, you need to validate if there's actually a market for what you're thinking of selling where you are.
How do you do that cheaply?
Conduct a simple survey. Talk to at least 100 potential customers within that practical driving distance. Remember, That 30-minute radius around a community with that $75,000 plus median income. Ask them a direct commitment question, something like, if I offered farm fresh milk, tested monthly for safety, would you commit to purchasing, say, 2 gallons weekly at $10 per gallon? Get specific.
And what's the benchmark?
You need about 50 firm commitments to even consider proceeding down the premium path. 50 households saying, yes, I'll buy that regularly. If you don't get close to 50, stop immediately.
Really? Just stop?
Yes. Stop. It means your specific location or your proposed product offering isn't validated by the local market at that price point. And you just saved yourself potentially tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars in wasted investment down the line. Market validation first. Always.
That's a fantastic low-cost reality check. Okay, so they do the survey. Maybe they get their 50 commitments. What's next? The medium term, say, the next 3 to 6 months.
All right. Step 2, medium-term strategy, next 3 to 6 months. Knowledge and conservative modeling. Now you invest, but invest in education before infrastructure.
Like what?
Things like that. Raw online training we mentioned. It costs about $99. That's a tiny investment for potentially massive returns in just understanding the protocols, the management standards, the risks involved. Learn before you build. Next, model your finances, but do it ultra-conservatively.
How conservative?
Add 50%, 50% to all of your estimated costs, feed, labor, supplies, insurance, everything, and then reduce your revenue projections by 30%. Assume fewer customers or lower sales volume than your survey suggested.
Why so pessimistic?
Because stuff always goes wrong. This builds in a buffer and mitigates the risk of unforeseen challenges or expenses wiping you out early on. Finally, in this phase, if you are seriously considering going premium, especially raw milk, contact your State Department of Agriculture directly. Now, understand all the local regulatory nuances. For example, liability insurance often runs $2,000 to $5,000 more per year for raw milk operations compared to conventional. You need that hard figure in your budget now, not as a surprise after you've already started bottling.
Get the real costs, build in buffers, learn the rules. Makes sense. Okay, and finally, the long-term positioning. What does commitment look like over the next 1 to 2 years to really solidify the farm's future on a chosen path?
Step 3, long-term positioning, next 1 to 2 years. Commitment and clarity. Before you go fully commercial, test your entire system. Operate your complete protocols, the milking, the chilling, the bottling, the inventory tracking, the customer database, the weekly testing submissions, the communication. Operate it all for 3 to 6 months as if you were fully commercial.
Even if you're just selling to family and friends initially.
Especially then. This trial period reveals all the unexpected challenges, the bottlenecks in logistics, the real labor hours required, before the stakes are high with paying customers. Work out the kinks internally first, and then ultimately you must choose one path, whether it's premium, raw, organic, A2, grass-fed, micro-pasteurized, or industrial scale, and commit to it strategically. That middle ground, that 200 to 1,000 cow range just selling commodity, that's where margins are compressing the most and the risk is highest. Do not remain there by default. Make a clear, strategic choice. Well, this has been another deep dive from the Bullvine Podcast. If this kind of no-nonsense analysis helps your operation figure things out, head over to www.thebullvine.com. We've got more articles there that really tell you what's happening in the dairy industry behind the headlines.
And seriously, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're releasing episodes twice weekly now, covering everything from genetics to market trends. And trust me, you really don't want to miss what we've got coming next week. We're digging into the surprising labor savings people are seeing from robotic milking systems and why maybe that huge capital investment might not be